Welcome to what could be the most important lesson in BibleTech 401, Lesson 7 on regular expressions, which is shortened as regex, and I always pronounced as regex. I've recently learned apparently other people pronounce it as regex because it's regular expressions. I don't care. Regular expressions are massively powerful, and I use them constantly in my tons and tons of work with text. I'm a writer. I use regular expressions. I am an editor. I use regular expressions. I'm a designer. I use regular expressions for CSS and HTML and all kinds of cool stuff. I am by no means an expert. AI is helping me write regular expressions in a way that Stack Exchange used to do. This makes this tool even more valuable than it ever was before. What are regular expressions? Regular expressions are hypercharged global find and replace. Hypercharged in that they can be very specific. Anything that happens according to a rule, according to some kind of, regular cadence, any pattern you can find in text, you can find with regular expressions and replace in very powerful ways. You can, this is just going to have to be shown to you, okay? So I'm going to give you a real life example here. I got from my good friend Brent Carding, who is a former King James only Greek teacher, brilliant guy up in Canada, assistant pastor at a website that I designed and that I host, gbcdartmouth.ca. Let me just show off my good friend Brent. He's part of the leadership team there. That's not him, that's the pastor. Here's Brent with his wife. She was the one who, if you possibly remember, this is a total rabbit trail. She's a lawyer. She's a highly trained, sharp woman, and she read my book Authorized, and she came away and told her husband, I've been lied to my whole life in King James onlyism. Anyway, that's your human interest story for the day. Brent is a brilliant guy, and he produced a light revision of Boethius's Consolation of Philosophy, books 1 through 5, and he shared it with me in a Google Doc, and he was asking for my input. However, I took a look and I noticed that, yes, he's using heading 1 here, but right here, this heading is normal text. This is not a paragraph style. It's just normal text with a special indent applied. You can see up here, it's normal text. This is not a heading, even though these are very clearly 2 or possibly 3, I would say 2 different levels of organization in the document. They're not marked that way except visually. He manually went in here and made this size 16 rather than size 12, but it's still tagged as normal text. Even if you don't understand styles, I think if you went through my Markdown series, or the 2 videos I did on Markdown and the one I did on Obsidian, if you think back to that, what ought to be happening here is the equivalent of something like this. Hashtags that demonstrate to the software and then ultimately to you visually what level of heading this is. Okay, I knew that I was going to get frustrated reading this on my Kindle if I just sent it straight there. So here's what I done. I downloaded this as a Word document. Okay, then I used Ulysses, which is my favorite app that I don't use. I used Ulysses to ingest that document. So I go to my downloads folder and I just drag that whole document in here, and it converts it to, let's make this visible here. It converts it to Markdown. But notice it doesn't do it right because I'm not getting a heading here. This ought to be something like a heading 2. This ought to be a heading 2. And this ought to be a heading 3, something like that. But because Brent was at least consistent, I'm able to go through this document and do global find and replace operations that can quickly get this into Markdown in a way that'll make it easy for me to get it into some other format that's readable on my Kindle or whatever, like EPUB. I review, a not insignificant number of books. I don't write the reviews as often as I used to. I'm just too busy. I'd rather be doing more of that and a little less design, to be honest, although I love serving the church with design. But publishers will send me PDFs, and I'm like, when am I really going to sit down at my computer and read a long PDF? I can't. I'm too busy. The only time I can read is in bed. It needs to be Kindle format. And Crossway is great because they will send me EPUBs if I'm reviewing a book for them. But other publishers, and I won't say who, don't do that and actually make it difficult for me to get to the book that I'm trying to read, which I find to be really counterproductive. I've been impressed with the way Crossway did it. And when I worked there, I saw their inner workings, and I really liked the way they manage their files. Anyway, I'm getting this now into Markdown, but I need to get it into a readable format for me. And here's where regular expressions will come in. I will grab all of this text, Command A and Command C, and I will pull up Visual Studio Code. This is my app that I use for all of my find and replace operations. Just about start a new document, paste it all in here, and now you can see I'm going to move my face over this way, even though it'll look like I'm looking off to the side. You can see that every line goes off the page. I actually find that to be better than word wrap, which I can do with a keyboard shortcut. Here's one line, but it takes up that much space. So right now I just want to see the beginnings of lines, because that's how I tell Markdown and my Markdown apps what each paragraph therefore is. So I could just go through here manually, and I could just add a hashtag and then a space before Book 1, The Sorrows of Boethius. I could just add double hashtags before summary. Maybe I do the same before Book 1. But instead, I'm going to use regular expressions to find regular expressions. I'm going to notice, for example, that as I go through here, Song 1, Song 4, in all caps, Song 5, that's consistently going to be a heading 2. And it's consistently structured this way. It's on its own line. It's all caps, okay? Because I can be specific about that in my regular expression. It's headed by and finished by 2 asterisks, because that's a bold in Markdown. So I can find every instance like that, and here's how I would do it. This is going to get complicated really fast. I'm going to give you an app later that'll help you learn these sorts of things. Also, ChatGPT really can help. I am not going to search for asterisks, because asterisk means something. It's a code, basically, in regular expressions that means find anything. So I have to use an escape character, which is \\. Now suddenly I'm finding these 2 characters on both ends. I'm going to specify this needs to be at the beginning of the line, which I do with a caret. And therefore, we're no longer finding these with this search. I love Visual Studio Code because it shows me already what I'm going to find. It gives me a little highlight. I'm no longer finding these 2 because they're not at the beginning of the line. Then I'm going to find the word song. I'm going to go ahead and make this match case. And then I'm going to replace every instance of asterisk song with hashtag space song. Now every one of these songs is a heading 2, and suddenly I can navigate my document more quickly. Let me point to a couple other things that I noticed. I noticed, for example, that we've got a bunch of single quotation marks. You know, Brent is Canadian. I guess that's what they do up there. Rather than what I ought to be seeing, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. I ought to be seeing double quotation marks that are curly. How can I change that with regular expressions? Well, I can do it manually. So, for instance, if I find this is one way I could do some of them. I could find the beginning of the line, then that apostrophe character, straight up and down apostrophe, and I could replace it with the opening double quotes. There we go. There are the opening double quotes. I've got that, but I still don't have this one. So how would I find those that are inside a phrase? Well, I would find space apostrophe, and by searching for those and replacing it with space double quote, I can fix those. I'm still going to have this problem. At the end of a line, I have a single apostrophe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a single apostrophe, then \n for new line. And I'm going to replace it with closed quote backslash n. And now if I go to the end of that line, you're going to see there's my double quote, just like I wanted. Now, what about double quotes within text, or a single quote? Let me just find another single quote here. That's not a quote. That's being used. Okay, here we go. Here's a good one. All right. So for this one, I can rest assured, because I know English, that if I find single apostrophe space, that's going, ooh, now this is interesting. I can't just, because of this poetic text, this is so rare, I can't just replace every one of these with closed double quote and space, or else I'll replace that one with it. That is difficult. Probably this is going to occur rarely enough, and for my purposes, it's not a big deal that I would just go ahead and replace it, and I'd put up with that when I read. But let me show you what I would do if I can't do that, if I'm doing an editorial project. I'm going to show you another tool. Now that I've showed you the kinds of things that regular expressions can do, and I'll show you a number more in this video, I'm going to use an app called TextSoap that I have as part of SetApp. SetApp is the Netflix for Mac apps. And why didn't SetApp open? Come on, SetApp. Okay, here we go. I'm going to show it to you. Here's SetApp. I subscribe for $10 a month, and I get a number of apps that I enjoy. Ulysses is one of them, even though I barely use it. I take all my screenshots with this. I use Pixel Snap. I love Bartender. Here's TextSoap. I love TextSoap. I'm going to open it up. This is not how I open it, by the way. I would use Raycast. Oh, I know why it's not opening, because I haven't launched a window. Here's a TextSoap window. If I grab all of my text from Visual Studio Code and paste it in here, TextSoap will run recipes full of regular expressions, either that I've created or that they've created, and they're excellent. I'm going to use one that they have created. I'm going to use Smarten Quotes. And now if I grab all this text, stick it back in Visual Studio Code and search for that phrase, you'll see this has been smartened. Now, a problem here that I don't know how to fix in TextSoap is we're still going to have some single quotes that ought to be double quotes, ending quotations inside a line. If anybody else out there knows how to solve that problem, I am all ears. I can do it at a smaller level, so I actually want to show you that. I'm going to grab a paragraph here. Let's start a new document. I'm going to make it easy to see the whole paragraph. And let's imagine that I do have some single quotes, because this is British text and I need to move it to American text. And let's imagine that inside those single quotes, there are double quotes, because that's the way they do it in Britain. And to make things a little bit easier to see, I'll just have this one line, this one sentence, right? Two sentences, no big deal. Okay, so again, here is my open quote, here's my closed quote. Within it, here's this quotation within a quotation, and this is all wrong. I could go through here and manually change these, and I actually know the keyboard shortcut to use the appropriate curly quotes. I could do that, but I want to use regular expressions. So I wrote a little script, a little recipe within TextSoap to do that. And I can go over to TextSoap, paste this in. For some reason, it has been doing this to me. It wants to give me question marks with all my text. No matter. I can do smart quotes and I'll get my curly quotes. But now I want to do switch quotes. Watch this. Click. And now those opening single quotes are double quotes, and the internal double quotes are single quotes. I use that on a regular basis. I wrote that recipe. Let me show you that recipe. If I go to my library of text and replace recipes, and if I go down to switch quotes, it replaces straight double quotes with quote, quote, quote. And it replaces curly opening quotes after a space with space, quote, quote, quote. And then it replaces the closing double quotes with quote. Then it goes through and replaces the apostrophes with a double quote, likewise with the curly ones. And then it goes back and replaces quote, quote, quote with a single quote. And then it applies smarten quotes. So here's a recipe of a bunch of find and replace operations, most of which are not regular expressions, but you can do them in regular expressions as well. Okay, let me show you some more stuff that I can do with regular expressions. When I am in a document in Visual Studio Code and I go back to Boethius, let me see if there are any numbers, which I can find with /d, that are followed by a hyphen. There are none. Wow, good job, Brent. So here, let me give you an example of this. Let's say he has in his table of contents chapter 1 through 3. Or let's say, as frequently happens, I'm editing a book and somebody writes John 3:16 hyphen 18. It's not supposed to be a hyphen in a number range. It's supposed to be an n dash. But you can't just go replacing all the hyphens. There are 111 of them, 120 of them total in the document. And they're in places like ill-used and self-command. I can't just replace those with n dashes. So, and I don't want to go, okay, I'm going to find every place where 1 hyphen is followed by 2, and then I got to do 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 0. Then I got to go do 2 hyphen 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I don't want to do all those find and replaces. Instead, I can find digits. Find a digit, hyphen, digit, /d. Lowercase d is a digit. Now I found all those. Now what do I do? Because if I just replace it with an n dash, then chapter 1 through 3, all of it just becomes an n dash. And actually, I lost my 6 and I lost my 1 here. This is what you do. Let me get the document back to the way it was. You put the digits in parentheses. And then it's as if regular expressions are doing sort of 3 searches. It's doing a search for all of this, number hyphen number, but it's also doing 2 other searches, a search for whatever number happens before the hyphen and a search for whatever number happens after the hyphen. And I can tell it, replace that with the result of the first search, the one that's in the first set of parentheses, followed by an n dash, which on Mac is option minus, followed by the results of the second search. And watch what'll happen. Bam. Now I have chapter 1, n dash 3, and John 3:16, n dash 18. This is so powerful. This is just amazing. Let me show you some more stuff you can do. Let us imagine that I have, this happens on a regular basis. Somebody will send me text that for whatever reason, I'm going to use change case in here, and I'll show, oops, come on. For whatever reason is all uppercase, okay? I just made it uppercase with the same tool I'm going to use to make it not uppercase. Now, I need to make this title case. Let's imagine this is the title of a book. Lady Philosophy Appears to a Downcast Boethius. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I do not know. I can use find and replace regular expressions that are coded into my raycast extension called change case, and I can change case to a bunch of different options. I'll first go lowercase, bam. Then I'll go to change case and title case. It's using regular expressions. And I don't have to know all that it's doing. It just works. But I know the principles that underlie the find and replace operations that it's doing. Here's something else that I'll do. I'll stick it all in here. This is a script for a video that, Lord willing, by the time I'm done having this video out, this video will be out on my channel as well. This is my script, and it includes links. It's in Markdown. It also includes images. I need to get rid of those because Markdown has a regular structure. I can use regular expressions to do that. So here's what I've done. I'll go over to TextSoap to do it. I will paste this into TextSoap, and I actually have a TextSoap helper that does this for me. I wish it wouldn't do this one thing where I have to change the font. I don't know why it does that. But I just use a recipe that I wrote for YouTube, script prep for YouTube. And now this can go directly into my subtitles so that you get proper capitalization and punctuation. Or I'll take it back to the way it was, all right? And I can do script prep for teleprompter. When I have a teleprompter, I found I don't want to have blank lines between the paragraphs because then I have to wait for that next paragraph to load as a blank line goes by. Instead, I just want little Pilcrow paragraph symbols telling me, okay, there's a paragraph break here, all right? Here's something else I can do with regular expressions. I can do where did it go? Yeah, script prep for VoiceStream Reader. So now I use 11 Labs, but I used to use VoiceStream Reader to read my script to me in my ear and repeat it. It's pretty hard, but some practice allowed me to learn this skill. Very, very important skill when you're a busy YouTuber. I took out everything that, with regular expressions, I took out everything that the VoiceStream Reader or 11 Labs has a hard time reading. It's not absolutely perfect. Here's aspedao still. I don't know exactly what it would do with that. I still have to do a little bit of a check, and especially if I'm using Greek and Hebrew. But it's removed tons of things that didn't need to be there. Regular expressions have become a regular part of my life, and I don't know what I would do without them. Let me give you another example. I use Logos constantly, and I'll do a search. And let's say I will, I want to show you because I'm using my Raycast search. I'll search the King James for God is love. And I get this number of examples. I'll actually remove the New King James. I'll just tap in here, hit Command A, then Command C to copy it all. Sometimes I need all of those references, and I need them in a markdown document. But look at the way they're structured. It is regular, but it's wrong. I don't want this. Deuteronomy 7:9, the reference comes before the verse. And I was doing this so frequently. What I ultimately want is something like this. Block quote for markdown. Then I want the reference to go at the end of the line and to be in parentheses, and I want it to be followed by ESV or King James or whatever it is. Okay, so what do? I get it into TextSoap, and I wrote a series of regular expressions. Those regular expressions will take my text, and let's see if I can find it here, reformat my logo search results, and look what I got. I'll take it back into Visual Studio Code. A nice, clean set of block quotes with the reference stuck at the end of the line instead of the beginning, because the structure of the document was regular and I was getting the same thing every time. I was able to do this, and this is nerdy but so useful for me. Kindle highlights. I in Obsidian have all these Kindle highlights, but I didn't like the structure. And I was finding I was doing this on a regular basis, so I wrote a regular expression set. I use Markdown for presentations in an app called DeckSet. And if I open DeckSet, you will see in just a second something that you might recognize if you watch my channel. Here's my standard quote format. Sometimes I make these in Photoshop. Sometimes what I do is I use regular expressions. So let me go to let me go over to Obsidian, find that recent script I did on the Hans Madueme book, and here we go. There are a bunch of block quotes in here that just need to be slides. So here's what I did. I grab all that text, I stick it in TextSoap, or I use the TextSoap helper in my menu bar, which I can't really show you so easily, but this is the hard stuff and the stuff worth knowing. I use the DeckSet prep recipe. That strips out everything that isn't a block quote, and then I can use my DeckSet template, which I can find with just Command E, to start sticking those block quotes in here. And as long as each of those block quotes is followed by this formatting, we'll just get rid of the rest of it, but you'll see it in just a second. I hit save, go back to DeckSet, and now it automatically creates these. Some of them aren't quite right. I need to go back into the file and find that word ecumenical, go like that, and now I've got a better break right there. But this is how I can make a bunch of slides quickly, because I can export from here with PNGs to the proper resolution. I am constantly using regular expressions and Markdown. Okay, I feel like with some of these lessons in BibleTech401, all I can do is whet your appetite. And that was probably a major, like fire hose of information right there that I just wouldn't expect anybody who's only freshly being introduced to this topic, and this video has gone on, longer than other videos. I wouldn't expect you to catch it all. I want you to see the kinds of things that you can do. And if you will learn how to use regular expressions, even the basics, I think you'll find that you are using them more and more frequently. Let me show you the app that I promised to show you. It is called Expressions, and it comes with Set App. And it really did help me when I was trying to learn. how to do this sort of thing. You paste text that you want to search through down here, and then you put your little regular expression up here. This is what I was doing for Themelios. This is a review in Themelios, and I had to take a massive HTML document and turn it into multiple separate HTML documents that were all structured the same way and all had the appropriate styles, and I used regular expressions in Markdown. So I found things like this: A class equals sup for superscript, href equals footnote, then a number, \d plus means any set of digits. I did the same 3 different times in this search, and then at the end I have a /1. But if I take that away, you're going to start to see down here all the things that this finds. I just find that to be so helpful for learning how to use regular expressions. If you edit text, if you write text, you're going to find this to be useful. I've given you all of the basic concepts, I think, for whetting your appetite and a bunch of the basic tools, and then especially I've shown you the different ways that I use regular expressions. I don't know how you work with text, even if you are only writing sermons week by week. I would use Markdown. The Logos system that I helped make, the sermon editor, is very nice. And that's the one thing that maybe if I were just a regular preaching pastor every week, maybe I would use that instead of Markdown. But knowing myself now, that'd be hard to imagine. It would have to be that all my writing was basically devoted to sermonizing. Then that would be useful. But my writing isn't devoted to that. My writing is devoted to all kinds of things: articles and books and blog posts and emails and letters and notes and book notes and all kinds of things, sermons. So I want it all in one place. It's in Obsidian, it's in Markdown, it's all exportable to other formats. And one of the big keys here is that it's not just exportable to other formats. That's not the only level of flexibility that Markdown gives me. This other major level is there. Because it's in plain text, I can use regular expressions to style it. If I have to paste in a bunch of info from somebody else and it's all messed up in its formatting, I can quickly whip through with a combination of keyboard shortcuts and regular expressions, and I can make a clean, readable document that, I'm a little OCD about this, but once you know what you can do to make documents beautiful, it's really frustrating and distracting to read documents that are not beautiful. I'm not the best designer out there, but I do really care about good design. Truth, goodness, and beauty have to go together, or I feel like the beauty part is screaming at me while the truth and goodness parts are trying to instruct me, and I just can't have that on my computer, on things that I read, and on things that I write. Was that any help to you? I sure hope so. If you want to start with regular expressions, Visual Studio Code is free. Ulysses is not free, but Obsidian is free. And if you get just Visual Studio Code and Obsidian, and then there are websites. Oh, what is it called? There's Code regex101 or something like that. I ought to know this. Let me just do this for you real quick. Yeah, regex101.com is the same as expressions. You can have a text string in here, a large amount of text, and then let's just stick some lorem ipsum text in there, and then you can use regular expressions to find anything, and it'll show up down there, and it'll give you some instructions about how to do it. You can use that instead of expressions. Do something. At least try this out. Even if you start with the very basics, you're going to start to get the cast of mind necessary to learn the new stuff. I find I can't just learn stuff to learn stuff. There has to be a purpose. If you start learning this, though, I promise you'll start to gain that purpose. You'll start to realize, boy, I could save myself 20 minutes of fiddling if I could just search for every instance of a particular set of characters. Regular expressions as your answer. Okay, are you persuaded? Give it a shot. I'd love to hear how it goes for you.